Good morning, everyone. It's that time to take a break with Drake, America's Bible teacher. We're coming to you live from Waitsburg, Washington at the Plazas Theater. It is sunrise on October 22nd, 2020. And here's your host, Dr. Drake.
Yes, good morning to you. As you can see, I am in Thessalonica.
And I'm just standing off to the side like a...
Greece. And, right. Yep. So, but I got a memo at dawn this morning. The Democrats are going to boycott Amy Barrett. How's that for a real genius move?
Thanks for that update, Bible teacher.
I just saw that first thing this morning. Bing came on the phone. I hadn't even washed my face yet, and I thought, oh boy, whatever. Hey, we have a guest today, and this guy he's the dude. Bring on Anthony Preston. Anthony, where are you this morning?
We're in Los Angeles, California, the home of so many wonderful conservative values.
You know, I heard somebody on the radio Monday, and they said that, shall we say, red signs are everywhere. And where they're driving and seeing. It was a woman of color talking on the radio. She was a guest on some show. She says, I really think California's going to go red this fall. I thought, what?
I do have to tell you, for the red signs that I have seen, they're in places you wouldn't expect. Yeah. I'll just tell you, I was leaving a job the other day. I was cruising through a very prominent part of town, a very industry-based part of town, and I was kind of amazed at those houses in the hills and how many of them appear to be red.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, you say Los Angeles. That's a basin of 20 million people. You and I and Helen and Serena, our wives, we had dinner at Malibu Cliff House. What restaurant was that?
That was at Duke's, and that was good memory, Drake. Yeah, that was at Duke's in Malibu a couple of years ago, actually.
Yeah, it was about 4 years ago, and but your home is your home in Malibu?
No, we were just visiting you there. We were trying to make ourselves look important to the great Drake and Serena Travis. We wanted to ball out, as it were. We're just trying to impress you, man.
Well, it worked.
We still occupy an Airbnb on that beach. I'm just kidding. No.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, Anthony. Well, listen. You told me you were on our show on DirecTV. It was April 2015. I distinctly remember that. It was the middle of April 2015. You were a guest on our show. That ran for 2 years. They played that every. I think it ran 4 or 5 or 6 times on reruns, clear up through 2018. That was kind of fun. But you told me that you got your start in in show business in a Christmas program when you were the star. Huh?
Where I played a tree stump.
You played the Christmas ornament at the top of a Christmas tree, and there you got your start in show business.
Well, don't flatter me, Drake. I was the Christmas ornament on the bottom of the tree, but I was present. No, that would explain. It ran for 2 years. Huh? That would explain why every time I saw somebody on the street, they'd say "sparkles." It's a great episode. No, I really enjoyed that show. I got a lot of positive feedback from that. The way you helped promote the high school program really impacted our ability to spread that message to so many people that need. Our message of just at this point, Drake. I mean, we're almost starting entry level with messages of just positivity, because, as you know, what some of these things have done to our culture has just brought us to a point of almost so much base level Neanderthal carnality that it's almost impossible. It's like you can't even chip away at some of the hot button issues until you really get to the heart of really just learning to common courtesy, appreciate another human being. That's unfortunately where we are. Yeah. But some of the things that I was thinking this morning about, I wasn't sure if you were going to bring that up or not, but a lot of what when I speak to young people nowadays, it's not so much about direction. It's not so much about some of the basic challenges we know they face. It's like, how do I treat another human being?
Wow. I like what you said. It's kind of caveman reduction or something like that. I mean, people, you see stuff on YouTube pop-ups, evening news, where people, they can't even talk anymore. It's you lay out, the 4 points of what a culture needs, and the other people are just screaming buzz phrases: racist, homophobe, xenophobe, dingophobe, Oreophobe. Or where's your head? They can't tell you. It's, oh my goodness.
Well, this is our fault. I mean, here's what I see. You got these devices now that have more in a matter of minutes. That I remember being in high school history class, and one of the things that my professor would just dig into. He was always about making bridge patterns between American history and present day circumstances. So one of the assignments, if you will, was we were encouraged to watch the nightly news. Well, between sports and other obligations, I was getting into theater back then and everything else. Like my news viewing time was very limited, so I didn't perform very well in that part of the class. But the thing is, now you can get, as you know, in a matter of seconds, a month's worth of, news feed and information. The problem is, without the proper navigation between just scrolling through headlines, if someone sees it in print, we talked about this, I think, when I saw you last. It was perception's reality. If something's written in a headline, whether it's true or not. I mean, how many things have been taken down from Facebook and Twitter and things like that because we won't call them fake news. They weren't accurate, or they were reposted. And the entire art. My favorite is this new trend now, where it says, Drake Travis's house is on fire, and by the time it's been shared 50 million times, it says Drake Travis lives in an igloo, because the entire article wasn't completely vetted before it was reposted. The trend is so much about just the pushing of information that no one's even ingesting, no one's reading, no one's absorbing, no one's really doing their due diligence, and there's no practical application. It's just this flood of information.
Wow. Yeah. Well, stuff gets taken down now because it's true.
Yeah. Yes.
What? How did that become the way we live? But
well, I think because as a society, and I think this will segue probably into where you want to go next, Dr. Drake, is what is the plumb line? What is the plumb line for what that truth is? Why don't we dialogue and unpack what that is? What are your thoughts on that? Because I struggle to find, when I get to this point in a conversation with anyone at this point, you kind of go, okay, well, at some point, in order to mitigate all of this, right, there has to be a baseline somewhere, whether it's a code of ethics or something. So what are your thoughts? Where does humanity, from this point forward, decide, okay, because if you're in a war between, as you said, between the truth, perceived truth, and just flat out a non-truth, where are we meant to start from? Like, in other words, how do we do that?
Yeah.
What's the baseline? What are we supposed to be operating from that is our barometer that tells us, okay, this is how we mitigate this information?
Yeah. And when you have an entire extremely well-financed squad roving through society in black outfits and red head regs, saying, let's cancel everything. Well, okay, after you burn the grocery store down, Sebastian, RPG, Bang Bang, Thump, whatever your name is now, after you burn the grocery down store, where are you going to eat? What are you going to eat? Well, that's the Republicans' fault. Or again, it's nonsense.
Hey, good morning to Dan Best and Cynthia Neff.
Yes, hello, Dan, Cynthia. Yep, good to have you here, folks. We have Anthony Preston from the Big LA. And Anthony, tell us what are you? Where have we seen you in show business? Because some people think, well, now come on, I know this face.
If you're really going to make me go down my resume, I will tell you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
There's about 3 different projects. Amazon Prime Video has been very good to me this year. There's one episode of a show called, there's actually 4 things, I suppose. There's an episode of a show called My Crazy Ex, which is just a really funny series about, it was like a docu-series about people that have had just really bizarre dates, and I did one episode of that. There's a new film called, it's your basic quintessential Hallmark story arc about, I play an attorney trying to save a small town from demolishing a historical property. That movie's called Letters from the Heart. That's on Amazon Prime. There's another one I just did, which viewer discretion advised. But this one I want to talk about for a second. I want to circle back to this. It's called Reversal, and I'll tell you why it's such an interesting piece and what it's actually, ironically, in this culture, done for my career. And then the 4th one comes out. It's actually one I was in a couple years back, but much like the popularity of the Higher Ground, or the High Ground. This has been circulating every Halloween, which was a show called My Haunted House, and it was a feature episodic about basically I moved to the Adirondacks, and then we basically buy this piece of property. It's haunted, basic premise after that, so it's a lot of fun. But Reversal was an interesting piece because unbeknownst to the writers, check this out. This is before, the script was written before the Me Too movement. Was written before we got any real notion of Black Lives Matter. We just sort of, come out of Ferguson about 4 years ago. But these issues we knew as a society existed, but not in the George Floyd way that they do now. But the movie's called Reversal. It's about myself, a white tax-paying citizen who is a trailer park, mechanic who's pulled over by 2 African-American police, assaulted, and then the story evolves from there.
Whoa.
But what the writer did in his ecosystem and story world was take all of these sort of whether it was racism or all of these different social faux pas, flipped them on their heads and had different characters from different races play those parts. And it was an interesting piece. And at the time, you're thinking, oh, this is so interesting. We hope people really get it and it's relevant someday. And then, of course, it came out like right when the pandemic started.
Oh, my goodness.
It actually hit. It actually came onto Amazon Prime August 25th. And the reason I remember that was I was sitting there with my agent and my phone started blowing up. And it was just funny because everybody's like, it got so much attention because it is a smaller budget type independent feature, but it's gotten so much viewership because it's just such relevant content. So we'll see where it goes from here.
My goodness. So what was your debut? I don't remember you ever telling me that. And you were on daytime television for
that was my debut. That was in 2001 was when I started on Young and the Restless. That was my technical professional debut.
Okay, I've never seen that show. I'm always super busy.
So
isn't that terrible? I've let you down, man. I've dropped it as a friend here.
I don't understand. You seem like our core demographic. I can't believe it.
But no, on Young and the Restless, you're a hunkmeister. You're the bratty little brother, or
I'm the guy. There's several scenes.
Oh, don't give me a Christmas tree story.
What are you talking about? I was going to give you there's several scenes where they need extras in the foreground. And there's a gurney that rolls by. Some of the best acting you've ever seen.
Oh, but what's your role on there? Was it?
Oh gosh, that was when I went back on that show. I was on that show several times with about a 5 or 6 years stint in between. The recurring role I did on that show was that was Days of Our Lives, actually. Days of Our Lives was a guy named Danny who was a fraternity brother as part of a storyline involving another character named Ford Decker. And it was coincidentally here. I don't know what it is about God, sort of has a sense of humor about dropping me into these kind of scenarios as an actor that actually play out in real life, you know, to some degree, sociologically speaking, later. But this was a storyline where my character was a fraternity brother to a guy who had allegedly sexually assaulted a girl on the campus. So it was an interesting storyline. But then you look back at that, you look at the Me Too movement, you go, wow, you know, it's like, again, art imitating life, imitating art. You know, just since you brought it up, I haven't thought about it in a while, but that was my recurring role on Days of Our Lives.
And you're the fraternity brother of the
guy who
the person who's in trouble. Yeah. Well, you know, I heard on the radio last month that you know what killed the Me Too movement, don't you? When Joe Biden was accused, then it was dropped. I thought, wow, it did drop. You know, and I said, I'm going to leave that alone. Well, moving on. But Anthony, I'm getting a vision here. Something we could do. We could be the rough guys going in and saving a town in Nebraska during corn harvest.
Quarantine?
Yeah, during quarantine. And our wives could be children of the corn coming out of the corn stalks.
Oh, God.
And we could save the harvest in this town and destroy all evil, and we could call it Starchy and Husk.
Oh, I think that's fantastic.
I think I'm onto something here.
I think you are. The only part of your storyline that I find weak is you did not mention a very hip hot rod from the 60s. If you put that in there, actually, we need a tractor. We need we need some kind of, what do they call it? We need a... It's too early. It's too early for this.
Yeah, we could get a Dear John tractor.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Ask Anthony about Elevate. What's going on?
Oh yeah, tell us about Elevate, your ministry, which inspires young people. That always intrigued me.
And then about the singing too, because we want to hear more singing.
Oh yeah.
Everybody says that. It is so funny. I get that all the time. Yeah.
Well, your singing's good. We press play on that. You know, when we need to pick up.
You're like, when we reach the end of our iTunes playlist and there's nothing else to hear.
Oh, come on. It's not like that.
When we've had a long day, what can we use we need a sleep aid. How can we? Oh, there it is. There's Collide. As far as the nonprofit, so as you can imagine, this is also interesting. We were making a bigger push towards, I think, you know, one of the biggest challenges was something like with a live production, like just to remind the viewing audience. So what Elevate is a 90-minute show, and we chronicle the journey of two young people as on their way to prom. And it's every twist and turn and, a moral decision in between. We sprinkled in some dynamic speakers. We have a band and music. And by the end of it, there's a 20-minute question and answer period, which by the time we've earned the right to engage with those students, the fact that we literally in that show turn the camera back to them essentially and break the fourth wall and say, what do you guys want to talk about? That was always the grand slam that program was able to hit.
Wow.
So the challenge for us was always, okay, well, this is great, because I can't tell you how many schools we went into, broke up the concrete, really started to till the soil of the adolescent heart and drop in some truth and watch them, the light bulbs go off, if you were. But it's how do you sprinkle and kind of nurture and water that seed over time? Well, we were making a big push towards, obviously, the social platforms, trying to do things like you've always done. And I think when I met with you last week, I was talking to you about, we were trying to put together we had put together one TV pilot because we knew that if we didn't get, more presence on the digital platforms, it wouldn't matter how many live shows we did. It's like, if you can't maintain a relationship with those kids and reinforce those values, that's the issue. Is how do we effectively, because it's easy just to go in and drop truth and move on. I mean, but how do you effectively journey with these kids? So we had explored two things. A 4-year sort of curriculum through the live show, but then reinforcement through a program called Rachel's Challenge, which was started after Columbine. They did an on-campus club. We had explored that, and then essentially, making sure we had a digital presence to follow up. So when the pandemic hit, and we were kind of already in the middle of all this, we were forced to maintain a relationship with our constituency online. But the beautiful part about that is we got. It's so funny. It's like God had this, cosmic plan to do some house cleaning, some spring cleaning, if you will, with some organizations, forcing them to, ironically, by distancing themselves physically, we were forced to reconnect more intimately, digitally. Look, just like you and I are doing.
Yeah.
So we're now doing what I call a data mine, which was something we did back in that program launched November 2nd, 2011. Preempted to that, I spent a year traveling this country, speaking at different events. So back to when I was on Young and the Restless, that's right about the time I was asked to start speaking on, we'll just call them conservative type values to young people, which then evolved into values in general. And then there's the basic code of ethics, like I said, about how do we treat one another. And what I discovered was, up until that point, high school programming, the way we were reaching our teens or attempting to, or guiding our young people was simply a list of don't do this. We talked about this on your show a couple of years ago where I said, modern American youth ministry, if you will, was basically you do these things, you're going to screw up your life. Not the most inspiring approach to take to people whose minds are growing at such a rapid rate, who by today's standards are receiving so much information, and our way of helping them navigate is to say, don't do these things, you'll mess up everything. So we kind of reverse engineer that and said, well, wait a second, okay, kids are going to do what they're going to do because, number one, they don't believe us because they don't have a frame of reference yet. You can tell somebody till you're blue in the face, what an experience is like. Until they have that experience themselves, there's nothing to relate to. Yeah. So we said, okay, well, what if we encourage people? What if we just said, here's a list of options and behaviors in life. Here's a list of ways you can go about living. These are and we, instead of telling them, this was fascinating because people thought it was nuts when we did this. This was our first data mine, and this is something we're returning to. That's why I'm bringing it up now. We said, well, what if we told people how to be successful? So you remember Joyce Meyer?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So this is kind of where this concept came from. She had a teaching for years called, what was the name? How to be obedient. Now, as you can imagine, that title and that piece didn't exactly fly off the shelves of the bookstore. How to be obedient, how to be submissive, and how to be, all of these other things that are kind of what we call the Christian grind. I'm on my grind, man, trying to be obedient. So this thing didn't move for years, but she knew at the core, well, the only reason that you would want to do that is because it's supposed to be a springboard into other opportunities and prosperity, and not necessarily financially, but just like in the sense of identity and success, in the sense of understanding with clarity without having to do this sort of beta test or school of hard knocks through life. The idea of obedience being, when you let God lead, you'll more in theory, you'll more quickly achieve your destiny. That was the idea behind it. Well, the thing wasn't moving at all. So she goes in there and rebrands it and changes the title to How to Be Incredibly Blessed. Oh. Well, it's sold out in a day.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
So we said, okay, wait a minute. Nobody wants to be told how. They don't need to be reminded how they may mess everything up. These kids have so much pressure to perform, to look a certain way. I read an article the other day about this new, and I should have looked it up before we came on today. I apologize for that. But basically, I wanted to talk about it. It's this. It's a new phobia. It's a new name. It'll probably have a new pill. But it's this idea that young people are cosmetically trying to alter their bone structure and faces to look like the filters on their Instagram. This is the kind of stuff these
Holy
people are.
moly.
This did not exist when we first started Elevate in 2011. So when we were doing our initial data mine to find out what is the best way to approach this program, I just couldn't get away from this concept of we've got to let these people be heard. We've got to let these teens articulate what they want. But the biggest thing we have to do is treat them like adults and say to them, look, your future's in your hands. I'm going to tell you some information. I'm going to give you some nuggets for success. If you don't do them, guess what? That is totally on you. If you do them, I can almost guarantee you'll go further in life. But you know what? But the thing we did, Drake, was we didn't tell them. We didn't hand them a gun and let them play, cultural Russian roulette. We said, look, here's the truth. Here's the statistics. You already know most of them. Do what you want. And people looked at me like I was crazy. So you can't tell young people to do what they want. I'm like, well, you're telling them not to do anything, and they're doing what they want anyway. I said, at least what I'm doing is encourage to go a certain direction, which is heart, dreams, goals, etc. And the biggest thing that I never see people do is tell these kids, you're enough. You have what it takes. You can achieve. You can do anything you put your mind to. These are some basic fundamental principles we've gotten so far away from that when we took those messages into high schools, people couldn't believe they worked. Oh, this program's so amazing. I'm like, you people are here every day. I am here once every 365. And I said, this is the kind of stuff I need help with. You can't keep slapping these people on the wrist. You got to encourage them to engage that energy. I think I said on your show a couple of years ago, I said, there's something that happens to a young person when they get to a certain age and those chemicals start to happen and testosterone and estrogen, and those things start to explode. And, people forget that this is the same level of God-given energy that got us on the moon, but misdirected, misguided, and without any direction. It's like electricity off the copper wire. It's powerful, but it's going to create a giant mess.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
It's like fire is great in your fireplace, but if it's on your couch, it's going to burn your house down. So it's like,
wow.
Where do we put the energy?
Anthony, I'm getting a picture about you that I have never seen before in terms of youth ministry, if I can use that phrase. You're like a youth pastor who sees through the whipped cream and the fog and the haze, and you add a neurosurgery touch to it because you really understand the way these kids think and what they're hungry for. And I also got a picture, if kids like milk or milkshakes. Well, if you serve those milkshakes in light bulbs, took a light bulb all upside and sawed off the metal thread part, and then put milkshake in an empty light bulb and served it that way, the kids would go, "I don't want that. Is that electric? It's just in the wrong container."
Correct. Yep.
It's what they want, but it's in the wrong container. And so they reject what they think it is. Correct. And they end up saying no to what's good for them because we're serving it to them strange. I mean, you really got the Issachar thing down here. You understand the times and act accordingly. That's impressive. Good grief. Can we have you on again? I didn't even reach half of what I wanted to pull out of you.
We need to squeeze some more.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just the tip. This was kind of just a recap. But to answer your question, what are we doing this year? I brought all that up, that Genesis story up, because things have changed so much that I said years ago, they wanted to sort of, without getting into it right now, because I think we're short on time, they wanted me to, and by they, I mean the board of trustees at Elevate, was like, we want to fixate on this one topic and solve this one problem. I said, you'll never get there, not without taking care of these things first. And all that to say, we sort of find ourselves in a unique position once again, where it's like, okay, so much has shifted and changed. We got to go back to formula, back to square one. We got to get back to the ear of the young person again and really discern what those challenges are before we start trying to tell them again how to navigate.
My goodness. Anthony, I try not to say this too much on the show live, but when can you come back? This is gold. This is gold.
I'm in, we're shooting a new film in Salt Lake City next. It's a Sundance film we're doing next week. So I would say probably anytime after that.
Okay. So you're in Salt Lake for your next filming and you're in Salt Lake for a month or?
My part, I'll be there just over a week.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if we could have you on again, late October, early November, Yeah, can you come back before Thanksgiving?
Yeah, we could definitely come back before Thanksgiving.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that. So huh?
Mention his website.
Yeah, folks, you see Anthony, can you see your website on the screen?
He cannot see it.
Okay, he can. We put anthonypreston.com. Share Elevate too, honey?
Well, everything that is Anthony stems from his website.
Okay. We've got anthonypreston.com, and we're pushing that. We're going to share that. So, I mean, you share this around today too, because this is just gold. This is golden stuff. What are you filming in Salt Lake?
Maybe it's a secret.
Or is it a secret?
No, I have to laugh because I'm thinking of our subject matter, and I'm thinking about even when I took this role. I play the father of a 15-year-old who gets solicited by a neo-Nazi gang.
Oh my!
But here's the best part. Did you ever read the John Eldredge book Wild at Heart?
Oh yeah. Met John Eldredge. I haven't talked to him in 8 years, but he's a friend. Yeah.
So there are so many themes about young men and initiation, which are part of the first several chapters of that book, that are synonymous with this piece. The reason I was fascinated by this script was because that's, artistically speaking, it's the kind of thing I would want to, and it's a metaphor for my life, but it's also artistically speaking how I see the future of how we're going to reach young people, and that's certain types of filmmaking and cinema. And this is literally about a displaced father. The backstory is that my character's wife dies during childbirth. My son looks just like her. We have this awkward relationship. It's very difficult being a single dad in that capacity. And then as a result of me being displaced and distant, he essentially, Sam, my son, gets in a quest to find his own identity, because I'm not giving him one, gets involved with this group. And there's a scene in the movie where I literally have to go into this camp and rescue my son. So it's an interesting piece, but and a heavy one at that. But I'm looking forward to doing it.
Goodness gracious! Forgive my earpiece. I gotta not let it come out. But anyhow, folks, Anthony Preston.
It's a comedy.
What's that?
I said, so it's a comedy.
Wow. Boy, folks, Anthony Preston, a man of vibrant faith and deeply committed faith, living in a part of the world where people don't have a whole lot of VBS thoughts about Hollywood, but Anthony's in the middle of it and doing a lot of production and blessing and touching a lot of lives. So anyhow, we're going to have Anthony back soon before Thanksgiving, probably in 2 or 3 weeks, but we'll have him back, and I want to talk about some future dreams and also your beginning in faith. Where did you go, hey, this God thing's real? I got to do this. This isn't just a cross on my neck. This is where my heart goes. So, but anyhow, folks, thanks so much, and go to anthonypreston.com and you can get other updates too, and do share this. This is rich. So, the Lord your God in the midst of you is mighty. He will rejoice over you with singing and song, and the Lord blesses you this day. So may you be blessed. Amen.